Hello and welcome. My name is Kyle Nielsen, and this is How You Level Up, a podcast where I ask questions to help you become your best self. Today, we ask, what is feedback? There's a lot to know regarding feedback, what it is, how we can give it effectively, and how we can receive and incorporate it. For today's purposes, we will focus on what is feedback, how feedback works, and we'll cover the most general and common framework for feedback conversations. To start, we're going to acknowledge the distinction between feedback and advice, which is what a lot of people think that they are giving when they give feedback. Advice and feedback, though related, serve distinct functions. Advice, obviously enough, is a recommendation or guidance provided by someone and given to someone else. Sometimes the advice is sought out, like when Christina goes to Charlie and asks Charlie, "Hey, what do you think I should wear to the party? This red dress or this blue one?" Christina is asking Charlie, "Hey, I'm coming to you and seeking help in making a decision." Advice can pertain to a wide range of topics, such as within a career, asking for guidance from a counselor for advice about the educational path to take, asking a friend about what to do in your relationship, asking a friend or someone at the gym about tips and tricks that would help you be as healthy as possible, and so forth. In each of these cases, and in all cases of seeking out, asking, or giving advice, advice is based on the advisor's own experiences, beliefs, and knowledge. Therefore, it may not always be the best course of action for everyone. It could be subjective, in that advice might not work for one person when it previously worked for another. Advice is also, typically, future-oriented. It provides suggestions or recommendations about what one could or should do. Advice, although valuable, is prescriptive in this future orientation manner. So, where advice typically centers on what one should or could do, feedback focuses on what was, what is, and what isn't. Feedback is typically past-oriented and involves providing observations and information about someone's behavior or performance. Feedback is a response to the performance or behavior intending to reinforce what was done or suggest how things can be improved. It is evidence-based and practical. When feedback intends to reinforce a behavior, it is framed from the outside perspective. Feedback in this manner might look like a performance review, a comment about a piece of art, or an offhand remark about a recent conversation. The SBI model is a feedback framework commonly used in coaching to provide structured feedback to individuals or teams. It's also really useful when giving feedback to a friend or loved one. Breaking down each component of the SBI model. S is situation. This refers to the specific context or circumstances in which the behavior or action occurred. It helps to set the stage and provide context for the feedback. B is the behavior. This component focuses on the observable actions, words, or, of course, behavior exhibited by the person receiving the feedback. It is essential to describe the behavior objectively and without judgment. I is impact. The impact component involves discussing the consequences or effects of the behavior on others or the overall situation. It helps the individual who is receiving the feedback understand the outcome and implications of their actions. This approach has been proven to facilitate clearer communication. To start looking at some examples, let's think about a common scenario in a professional setting, like giving feedback on a presentation. Here's how the SBI model would be applied. First, we start with the situation. Of course, in this context, the situation is, during yesterday's team meeting when you were presenting the quarterly sales report. The situation should be a specific event and time that both the person giving and the person receiving the feedback can recall. Moving on to the behavior, this is what was observed. Again, it's essential to focus on actions rather than inferred intent or character. So the behavior was, I noticed that you were speaking very quickly and skipped over several key points that were on your slides. And lastly, we have the impact. This is where it is shared how the person's behavior affected the team, the project, or whatever the relevant outcome may have been. In this case, the impact was, as a result, the team had difficulty following your presentation and understanding the key takeaways about our sales performance. All right, so now all together, this sounds like, during yesterday's team meeting when you were presenting the quarterly sales report, I noticed that you were speaking very quickly and you skipped over several key points that were on your slides. As a result, the team had difficulty following your presentation and understanding the key takeaways about our sales performance. We should note here that the feedback should always be about the behavior, not the person. Nowhere in this feedback was it focused on the person, like saying, you're a fast speaker. Instead, the feedback was, you were speaking quickly. This is behavioral, not personal. The beauty of the SBI model is its clarity and focus. It helps the receiver understand exactly what they did and how it affected others, which is critical for prompting change. Here are two more examples of what the SBI model for feedback would look like in a professional setting. In this example, we're going to focus on team collaboration. Our situation here is last week when we were working together on the project deliverables. Notice how we've specified the time and context to help the recipient recall the exact situation we're discussing. Next is behavior. The behavior was, you consistently took the lead and made decisions without consulting the rest of the team. The language here has removed judgment or inference about the character or intentions. And finally, the impact. This made the other team members feel undervalued and overlooked. It may have also led us to missing out on potential valuable input from diverse perspectives. Here, the descriptions of the emotional impact on the team are not pulled out of thin air. This is information that is collected before providing the feedback. Altogether, this feedback would sound like, last week, when we were working on the project deliverables, you consistently took the lead and made decisions without consulting the rest of the team. This made other team members feel undervalued and overlooked. It may have also led us to missing out on potential valuable input from diverse perspectives. The person receiving this feedback now has insight into how they can change their behavior, like asking more questions of the team and involving them in decision-making processes. And for the final professional example, we're going to look at feedback on customer interaction. This time, let's start with it all together. Yesterday, during your interaction with a client over a service call, you handled the client's complaints with patience, active listening, and empathy. You took the time to fully understand their problems before proposing a solution. This not only resolved the client's issues effectively, but also improved our relationship with them. They expressed their satisfaction and even mentioned they would recommend our services to others. What can we make of this example? If you were the person who received this feedback, what would you think? And what would you do next time? It's clearly positive feedback as compared to the negative feedback from the first two examples. And when we say positive or negative, the feedback is not good or bad with the SBI model. It is an opportunity to grow and take note of what works and what doesn't. So positive feedback does not mean good feedback. It means keep doing this behavior. And negative feedback does not mean bad feedback. It means stop doing some behavior and do something else. And what about outside the professional setting? Well, here is what feedback on communicating during an argument might sound like. First, we have the situation. Last night when we were discussing our plans for the weekend, the behavior, you raised your voice and interrupted me when I was trying to express my opinion. Impact. It made me feel unheard and frustrated, which led to the escalation of our disagreement. This hurt our communication and made it difficult to reach a compromise. You know what this is starting to sound like? It's starting to sound like nonviolent communication, or NVC. In the same way that you can apply NVC to a professional or a personal conversation, you can apply the SBI model to your feedback conversations with anyone in any area of life. So let's look at one more personal example. This is feedback on thoughtfulness. We have the situation. Yesterday, when I was feeling down because of the tough day at work, behavior, you noticed my mood and you made an effort to cheer me up. You cooked my favorite meal and we watched a movie together. Impact. Your actions made me feel cared for and understood, which helped lift my spirits and improve the rest of my evening. Yeah, it sure does sound like NVC. Once again, NVC is an observation, your feeling, a need, and a request. In both NVC and the SBI model, judgment is removed and actionable insights become the topic of discussion. From this last example of feedback on thoughtfulness, let's use NVC and check for differences. Once again, the SBI example of feedback is, yesterday, when I was feeling down because of the tough day at work, you noticed my mood and made an effort to cheer me up. You cooked my favorite meal and we watched a movie together. Your actions made me feel cared for and understood, which helped lift my spirits and improve the rest of my evening. And now, using this for NVC, this example sounds like, yesterday, I had a tough day at work. You noticed my mood when coming home and cooked my favorite meal and put on a movie. This made me feel loved, like you really see me. While I didn't express that I wanted to be cared for, you did it anyway. Could you do more of this? That is, seeing that I need love and giving it to me in your special ways. The biggest difference here is at the end. Where NVC makes a request at the end, the SBI model does not explicitly state to make a request or ask a question. It is implicit within the feedback itself. Let's take a moment to acknowledge and act on this. Knowing that the SBI model does not explicitly state anything, we're going to have another episode on how to best give and receive feedback. So until that time, you might ask yourself, when will I know if feedback is appropriate? Well, beating the dead horse here at this point, though it's worth saying anyway, feedback is most appropriate when it relates to tasks or behavior under the control of the recipient, when it's timely, and when it's constructive. You'll notice that in all of our examples with the SBI model, the behavior and impact are within the control of the person who is receiving the feedback. As in, these situations did not involve influence from outside parties. When feedback may not be appropriate or effective is when emotions are high, when there is no clear purpose for the feedback, or when the recipient isn't ready or open to receive it. Feedback that is vague, is not constructive, and is unrelated to specific behaviors will do more harm than good. So before our next episode, think of a recent situation where you wanted to provide feedback or receive feedback and were unsure of how to deliver or ask for it. What details could you include to make the situation clear and specific? How might it focus solely on behaviors rather than making it about the person? And what might the impact of sharing such feedback be? Thank you for listening to another episode. If you're enjoying the show, open up the app you're listening to this on and hit the like or subscribe button and give a 5-star rating. At least twice a week, you'll find a new episode asking you a new question, so you can strengthen your emotional independence, improve your communication skills, and upgrade your personal philosophy. So if there's a question you'd like me to dive into next, send it to any of these social media accounts connected in the show notes here. This is all about how you level up.